I'm Shannon Ireland, your host of a Healthy Push podcast. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. Everything used to be hard for me. Even just driving 5 minutes from my house used to feel impossible. But now I absolutely live for travel and adventure, and I experience lots of peace and joy. I've not only reclaimed my life, but I've helped hundreds of others to do the same. Here, we stop managing anxiety and instead we create a healthy relationship with it. One where you say goodbye to the anxious thoughts, symptoms, panic attacks, and fears, and you actually live your life. Forget complicated strategies, quick fixes, or the same old hacks you've heard 100 times before. Each week, I'll bring you simple, actionable advice and honest conversations that lead to real, long-term healing. You aren't just an anxious person, my friend. There are reasons why you're struggling with anxiety, and these are things you can fix and heal from. And this is where that journey begins. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Hello, and welcome back to a Healthy Push podcast. Today, I am joined by Sarah Levy, a somatic therapist and nervous system regulation coach who really helps people come back to their body when stress, burnout, and life feels like too much. And I feel like this is such an important conversation because nervous system regulation, I think, is something we've been hearing and we're still hearing so much about. And I think a lot of people are still confused by it or feel like they're doing it wrong. So today we're really going to break it down in a way that actually makes sense. We're going to talk about what regulation means, what it doesn't mean, what it can look like in relation to anxiety or panic, and why so many people feel like I'm not doing this right, I'm failing, even when they're trying really hard. We're also going to get into the somatic stuff, like what it looks like to reconnect with your body, especially if you feel that disconnection, the overwhelm, maybe afraid of the sensations and symptoms. So if you feel like you're stuck in your head, frustrated with the anxiety tools, like unsure how to feel safe in your body, this episode is going to be really helpful for you. So, Sarah, welcome to a Healthy Push podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to get into all the things you just named.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. I feel like this is such a needed conversation. I find myself all the time like, I want to do post or like just talk to the camera about nervous system regulation because I have like so many thoughts and frustrations. And I'm like, you know what? No, not my lane. Like, I teach it in my own way, but I'm like, I can't even go there because I get so frustrated with what I see, especially on social media. So I feel like this is a good place to start. Like, because we hear so much about nervous system regulation and like regulate your nervous system, and this is so important, and this is going to like fix all the things. Can you break down what it actually means? Like, what is nervous system regulation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone will sort of have their own spin on it, but I will share with you how I like talking about it, which is that we all have this thing called a nervous system. And when we're thinking about the nervous system, or when I'm talking about it, we're talking about the autonomic nervous system. And so this is the part of your body that is sending signals to your brain of safety and danger. And according to those signals, your body is going to go into one of a few different states. And so your body's doing this all the time. I like to sort of introduce nervous system work and regulation as like, this is your body's inner protector. It's there to truly be on the lookout all the time to keep you alive. And so it's working for you, whether you're thinking about it or not, it's there. And then depending on those signals that your body gets, right, it either will move into more of a fight or flight state, it might shut down and move into freeze, or you might notice that there's nothing around you that's a threat. Things actually feel pretty calm, maybe a little safe even, and there's something that can settle inside. And so when we're talking about doing nervous system work or like finding that like elusive nervous system regulation, right? We're thinking about building in flexibility in your nervous system. You want to be able to have that fight or flight response. You want to be able to have that shutdown response and be able to settle. And so the point is not that we want to feel calm all the time and people who are calm are regulated, right? That's actually not it at all. It's more the flexibility to move between these different states. And often what happens, and for the folks I work with, they come to me because their nervous system is actually kind of stuck on or off, or it feels really scary to think about slowing down and actually feeling calm, or don't have never had experiences of what it's like to feel safe. Like that word feels like, what even is that? What does that mean? And so a lot of the work I do with folks, whether I'm working as sort of like their individual somatic therapist or doing more coaching based work, is really around getting to know the nervous system, getting to know the signals of the different states, and starting to build in that flexibility so that your body can respond exactly as it needs to in the moment.
I love that you said it's really about building in flexibility because I think something that maybe is said or I think just interpreted with a lot of the things you see about nervous system regulation is like you do this work and then you're just regulated all the time. Is that even a thing? Can you be walking around just like regulated at all times?
Right, like absolutely not. Nor is that like the thing that would support your well-being. I
Yeah.
think it's there's sort of this, I see it both on Instagram and the internet and things like that, but I also think it's a way of thinking about our care, which is this idea of doing it in this perfectionist way of like,
Mm.
if I just reach the mountaintop, if I just like get the exact perfect practice and the perfect morning ritual and, I'm taking these vitamins, then I will reach like the pinnacle of health and I'll be regulated all the time. And then I'll finally feel good or something like that, right? There's sort of this messaging around it, and the way things are then like collapsed on the internet and social media specifically, it's very all or nothing, which is again just not the point of doing nervous system work. It's really about having that connection to the flexibility of it. There are times where we need our body to respond in that fight or flight mode. You need that activation that shows up, and same with the shutdown. There's a lot of like moving out of like being disconnected or dissociated, and that is really helpful. I share things like that too, of like the ways to slowly move out of it.
Hmm.
But the reality is that is a conservation state. That is your body saying, this is too much for me right now, and this is what I need to be able to survive. And so one of the things I really love about just, even thinking about the nervous system as a way to support with well-being when it comes to, navigating anxiety or anything else that's going on, is that it's really a way to help like normalize and validate and remember that your body knows exactly what it needs to do in order to keep yourself alive, in order to keep going. And there can be something so grounding about that trust, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, dang, so good. Like, I want to get to that because I feel like obviously people listening, if they're struggling with panic disorder and agoraphobia, they're like, trust what? With my body, especially? Like, no. So, before we go there, you
Yeah,
mentioned dissociation, which I think is such a common symptom of anxiety and panic. And it can obviously feel like really jarring, uncomfortable, scary. And I think like why I want to talk about this is because you're emphasizing, right, the importance of understanding our nervous systems. And I think this is part of the regulation work, right? Like understanding your nervous system, what it's doing, why it's doing it. And we don't always see that as being part of the work, but I think that's such a massive part of the work because like the symptoms aren't just showing up for no reason, right? Like you said, it's like
exactly.
protection. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit because I feel like obviously when you're feeling all this stuff, you really don't feel like safe in your body, but understanding the why is so helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that point. It's really sort of the first step when I'm working with folks is getting to know your nervous system specifically
Mm-hmm.
and understanding what different sensations, what different emotions, what different thought patterns tell you about what state your nervous system is in, because that is going to give you so much information about where your body's at. And oftentimes the reason it can be really hard to take the stuff you find, whether it's on the internet or something you read about with the nervous system, and apply it and feel like, well, maybe that didn't work for me. It's because we don't actually know our own language of our body quite yet. We don't fully understand what it means in the moment that we're experiencing something really
Mm-hmm.
activating, or we feel totally numb. or we're having this like weird twitch over here. And like, what does that mean? Right. Like there can be all sorts of ways of not really knowing where we're at. And so we try something and it doesn't really fit. And so the first thing I do with everybody I work with is really getting to know, what are your body's specific responses when you move into these states? What is my body telling me about this in this moment? The example I like giving too is, everybody has different responses to a fight or flight, but my personal one that always indicates for me that I'm in a fight or flight response is I get very sweaty. Like I'll be sitting,
Yep.
but I'm like sweating. I'm like,
Yep.
what is going on? And it's always an indicator to me like, oh, there's something really activating going on. And I don't, sometimes the focus can often be on like, why is that happening? Right.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people come to me and they're like, let me just figure out why it's happening and then it will make it better, which is not always the case. I really shift the attention more towards how can we meet with what's there right now? Okay, so there's a lot of activation in my body and I'm sweating. I probably need some water, right? I probably need to make sure that the clothing I'm wearing is comfortable for this moment. Like, can I take off a layer, right? Like really tending and meeting the body versus trying to fix something or trying to make your body wrong for feeling this way, or like, I shouldn't be sweating. What am I even nervous about, right? Like there's nothing around me, which is like really a place I know that folks can perseverate on, and it's missing the thing that's actually happening underneath.
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that because I think that is such a normal human response, though, right? That like analyzing or wanting to fight because you're like, I just don't want to feel this way. But when you slow things down and you actually do that checking in with yourself of like, hey, what do I need right now? It can help you to make a much healthier decision that's like not going to keep the anxiety like sounding the alarms, right? So
One.
I love that you said that. Okay, something that I'm thinking, right? Is I think a lot of what we're sold on with nervous system regulation is that you do have to create like all these rituals or you have to use all these products and you have to spend all this money. Can we, before we go any further, can we touch on this? Because I think this is so important and where people can go very wrong with this type of work.
Yes, absolutely. This is sort of the key of all the coaching work I do, which is this idea that it actually, to regulate your nervous system or to practice building nervous system flexibility is not, um, it's not about creating the perfect environment all the time. It's about weaving in these small moments of connecting to the body, of slowing
Mhm.
down. And it's so hard, right? When you might have a lot of things going on in your life. There's really no space to slow down and connect with your body. Or perhaps you're somebody, this is a lot of the folks I work with, who have spent most of their lives sort of disconnecting from their
Mhm.
body, have spent most of their lives with their attention outward, paying attention to what others need from them, how they can show up for other people in these different important ways. And by the time folks get to me, there's sort of this like, I don't even know where to start with what it would mean to connect to my body. Like, how do I even
Mhm.
build that in? And I love getting to support folks with slowing down and starting to pause and be like, okay, this actually doesn't have to be all that complicated. We can start with just orienting and noticing where you are in this moment. Can you just look around for a moment and like recognize one color in your space? Can you notice a sound that you hear or something your body's touching? And can we hang out with that for even 30 seconds, right? And then we
Mhm.
start getting curious about like what happens in your chest, what happens in your stomach. And for those who live in their head, right, what happens to your thoughts? Do they slow down? Do they speed up? Do they get focused in one place or another? And again, without needing to fix anything. This is the key piece of this too, is like the idea with building a nervous system flexibility is not that we're looking for things to try and figure out how to like
Yeah.
make it different or like solve it, but just to observe it and be with it for a moment. That is
Yeah.
that is the first piece of it, always.
Yeah. And we try to skip that, right? And I think it's because that observing, being with it is like you said, it's probably the opposite of what you've been doing. It doesn't feel cozy or comfortable. And it can feel really hard. I mean, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think this is, I think, like a lot of what people hear, right, is like, you've got to slow down, you've got to allow yourself to like be with yourself, connect with yourself. But it's like, is that even practical, realistic, especially in anxious moments?
Yeah, I appreciate that question so much. And something that I'll explain to folks is that if you want to run a marathon, right, you're not going to train for a marathon by running a marathon first. You're going
Yep.
to start by, like running a mile, doing a 5K, right? You build up to it.
Mhm.
And so in the beginning, you're right. To try and slow down when the anxiety is at its peak it's asking you to do something that is so antithetical to what your body wants that, like, of course that's going to be so hard. Of course that would be
Mhm.
impossible, right? So there's two principles of somatic experiencing that I use with everyone, which are titration and pendulation. And titration is this idea that we are doing just a little bit at a time. And so when we first start this practice of slowing down with ourselves and noticing something, one of the practices I'll use with folks is just starting to look for glimmers, which are small things that can be sort of like the opposite of triggers. But these are small things that offer a little bit of joy, connection. It can even be neutral things. It can be like, oh, I have my water bottle here and that feels nice, right? It can be really neutral, but starting to pay attention to those very small things and make note of them. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to meditate on it and be like, what is my body doing right now? But just that small practice, you are titrating a little bit of that ventral vagal, that settling in the body of noticing something neutral, joyful, connecting, right?
Mhm.
And so doing it in these small ways at first is always going to be the route to getting to the bigger moments, which is when I'm doing sort of deeper work with people, we can go to more of the anxiety. We can sort of sit with it more because we've been building up, again, the flexibility in our nervous system to be able to go into it and then come out of it, which is the pendulation piece. Pendulation is when we're going towards something that feels more activating and then towards something that feels more settling in just little bits and little pieces. And you'll start to see your body has these shifts that happen as we practice that. But to go back to sort of the first part of your question, it's just like a little bit at a time in moments that you are not at like a 10 with your anxiety or activation.
Yeah, I love that you said that because it's so funny because I'm like, I think I know what she's going to say. But this is like such a big part of what I teach too, because it's like you can't expect that your brain in these anxious moments, when you're desperately trying to practice these things, that your brain is going to be like, oh, yeah, like we've got this. It is like your brain's like, no, we're trying to just get through this, survive. We have no practice with this. What the heck are you doing right now? And I think
Right.
that's where a lot of people can find like themselves going down those holes of like, nothing is working. I'm trying, like, I'm so desperate. And I think oftentimes too, when we add more to the mix, right, this like forcefulness of, I'm going to try to regulate, I'm going to try to do all the things, especially only in the anxious moments, it just creates so much more anxiety.
Yes, absolutely. Because the other piece of this too, exactly to that point, right, is that your nervous system is at capacity. When you're
Hmm.
in your most anxious state, your nervous system is working so freaking hard for you in those moments. It's
Yeah.
like, we just need to survive this right now. To try and add something in and be like, and can you also do this, by the way? It's like, absolutely not. I'm not going to start noticing my breath right now. Like, I can't. I need to like get through this moment. And so, yeah, it makes so much sense that, people start down that road and then they're like, okay, well, this isn't for me. I can't like add another thing. And so much of doing this work is really shifting the mindset around it too, which is like, we're not
Hmm.
going to start there. We're not going to start with like your worst panic attack this week. We're going to start, the place I always start is, what is the thing that felt the most like settling, the quietest moment that you had, right? And it might be that there was still a lot of activation happening around you, but that, what can we notice about this one brief moment, your first sip of coffee that was like hot and delicious, right? Like, can we
Hmm.
hang out there for a second? And again, by doing that, we're sort of creating these other pathways in your brain so that you can be able to do this when the anxiety is more intense later on, that this is sort of like slow work that we build on, and it takes time. It's not going to be as instantly gratifying in the moment. But if you're struggling with sort of panic and anxiety, like the way you're describing.
Yeah, I love that. So, I'm just curious, and maybe people are
Mm.
thinking too, or maybe this might just be me, but when you're having people really focus on like, what are like, what is a calm moment that you've had, or a moment where you've been able to feel connected? What is sort of the goal of that, I guess? Because my thought is going to, like, it obviously helps you to recognize, like, you do actually have these moments where you can feel settled and you can feel calm and at peace. And I think when you're struggling with panic and agoraphobia, you often convince yourself, I never have that. Like, I always feel so heightened and activated and dysregulated, when that likely is not the truth, but totally valid that you feel that way.
Totally. I think that is one aspect of it that can be nice, right? Is like the recognizing the moments that have been calm.
Yeah.
I will say, typically, I am really focused on the here and now and orienting to the
Mhm.
present. So, something I do at the start of all of my sessions, how I end sessions too, again, whether I'm doing therapy or coaching, is to orient to where we are right now and using our senses to do that. And I am pretty free flowing with it when I'm sitting one on one with people. And as I get to know people better, I understand more of like which sense feels more accessible. I have some people who, when I invite them to look around their space, they're like, absolutely not. That's so triggering and upsetting for me. And other people, that's the only way they know how to orient to where they are. Right. And so we try and find like which sense feels more accessible and finding that anchor for the day of like, oh, I can feel that like my desk is really solid right now. I'm just like literally naming the things for me that feel very angry, which is like I have
Yeah.
a really solid desk in front of me, right? I can feel like the back of my chair. I can, taste like the water that I just had, right? That there's these things that we can connect to right now. And those are the ones that we'll come back to throughout the session, throughout our time together of like, can we come back as things start to get sort of activated, get a little bit more overwhelming, it starts to feel more out of control. Is it possible for us to come back to that thing just for a moment, even just to get a little like touch in on something that feels sort of the opposite of where our body is heading to right now? And we see how long we can stay with it. It might not
Yeah.
be very long, and that's okay. That's a normal thing. That is, again, the way your nervous system is protecting you and keeping you safe. And we just continue to practice over and over again. It will
I,
expand. It does.
yeah, for sure. I love how you're like, this is part of the work that you do, because I think for a lot of people, right, when you tell somebody, go internal, especially like, say, like, let's be with your breath or let's be in your body, it's like that is so triggering. And so I think this is the huge part of why you teach, right? Like, you've got to learn your own nervous system, because I think we hear a lot of the advice and we see a lot of the tools and hacks and things, and you're like, okay, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, but like, it might not feel good or helpful for you, and that's okay. That's not a you problem. So I think, like, let's talk about that, because I know people can get really stuck on this idea of like, well, breathing exercises are supposed to be helpful, like grounding practices are supposed to be helpful. Like, I've tried all of that and it doesn't work for me. And it's like, yeah, because we all have very individualized systems. And I think that's why, right? It's so important you learn what's helpful for you and what's not helpful.
Definitely. I think there's also this piece that I'm sort of hearing you ask about that feels really key to all of this, which is the willingness to be curious, the
Mm,
willingness to be with your body as life is happening throughout the day, throughout the week, and being curious about what is it that's going to help me right now.
yeah.
Because you're totally right, Shannon. Like, for some people, breathing exercises is awful. I work with a ton of people who don't want to connect to their body at all, and I do somatic work with them
Yeah.
without us even really talking about the body. It's
Wow.
really guided through the things that were like the conversation or how I'm going to invite them to notice. If I notice they're talking about something they're like interested in, I'm like, great, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions about that right now, right? You're really into music, tell me everything about music that you like, right? That like, I am not saying, can you tell me how your body's responding right now as we do that?
Mm,
Occasionally I'll pause and say, do we want to check inside and see what's going on? And it's always an invitation. It's always a like, do we want to? Yes or no? If not, it's okay. Your body is still responding in the same way, whether or not we're focused on that in the moment. But that even the things that might work for us one day are not going to necessarily work for us the next day. And so is there a willingness to be curious and stay with it and say, okay, that thing actually did not work for me today. Usually, going for a walk, it helps me clear my head. Today, I just, ruminated the whole time and was super stressed about it. Can I be okay with the fact that I tried to do so? I tried to meet myself where I was, and I might actually need something else right now. Maybe I need a mint to help sort of break whatever internal cycle is happening right now and sort of reset. Maybe I need to, excuse me, maybe I need to call a friend or text somebody. Maybe that would help, right? It's the curiosity and the willingness to stay with yourself, which again is a huge part of what indicates for me when I'm working with someone that their nervous system is becoming more flexible, and indicating for myself, right? Over time, there are times where I notice for myself, moving about the world, that I don't feel flexible about it. And I'm like, okay, I'm really annoyed. I spent this time going to this yoga class and I spent the whole time just thinking about this other thing. And there can be a frustration around that. And at the same time, something I've practiced over many, many years is the self-compassion of, this is just part of the work. This is part of caring for your nervous system, is coming back and recognizing that we tried something, it didn't work today, we'll try something different again tomorrow.
Yeah, I love that. I always try to give those helpful reframes too of, can we look at it differently as not black and white of, is it working, is it not working? Maybe change it to is it helpful or not helpful? Because like you said, some days the thing is going to be helpful. Another day it might not be helpful. But that I think we get so caught up in, I want to find the thing that works. I want to find the right thing. And I think then that perfectionism, right, of I want to do it right and I want to get it right. And that just oh, how much force and pressure lives there. And then anxiety, of course.
Yeah, and I have such a softness for that too, right? That part that shows up that I just want to feel better, right? I
Uh-huh.
just want to find the thing that's going to make me feel better right now. And I want to offer, right, that it's so understandable that you want that too. And that the process of getting there might not be what you expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that the more, again, that we can be gentle with ourselves, we can have compassion with ourselves around that. Again, that's sort of bringing in that nervous system care. If that's the only thing that you do today is be compassionate with the fact that you were feeling super anxious or had a panic attack, and you afterwards had a moment of just wow, that was really hard for me and I survived it. How beautiful. That is nervous system work to me. That is you getting through something incredibly hard and finding yourself on the other end of it in a little bit of a softer place is just wonderful to me. Again,
Yeah.
it's just it's so understandable, and it's a hard place to be when you're just so sort of desperate for relief.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move a little bit into connecting to your body, because I
Mm.
think this is talk about trust, right? I think this is a massive way that you can build that trust with yourself. So, so many people, I think I look back on my journey with anxiety and I'm like, holy, I was so disconnected from myself, so disconnected from my body for so many good reasons. So, can we maybe just start with why might people be very disconnected and why that makes sense? Not the here's how we fix it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it makes so much sense that we get disconnected from our bodies because perhaps you've had experiences that have made being in your body feel very scary or uncomfortable or um, terrifying. There's sort of all sorts of reasons why we might want to disconnect, or we may have learned that connecting to our bodies causes us pain or it causes people around us pain. If you were taught that your needs or your desires were wrong or bad, or you were shamed for them, right? There's so many different so many different ways that we can get disconnected. And I think these things can be exacerbated by roles we play in our lives, jobs we find ourselves in, places that want to keep us disconnected, places
Hmm.
that are saying, no, no, your needs are not important. The thing we need over here is actually the important thing, right?
Hmm.
And so the the way I think about it and the way I like talking about disconnection is really moving into that sort of dorsal vagal shutdown freeze state is it's a conservation state. It's a way that we survive. It's a way we move through the world in order to manage and navigate the moment. And there's so much value in it. And a lot of the coaching work I do is really centered around understanding sort of the like functional freeze state, that like low level disconnection, but you're continuing to live your
Mhm.
life, and other people perhaps perceive you as doing things well or being successful, but underneath there's like a real disconnect with what you want, what you need, who you are. And I see that really commonly too amongst parents, new parents, right? This shows up a lot. And there's so much around parenting that sort of can reinforce that too. But it's it's a way to survive. And so there it always makes sense to me that I meet with folks and see folks who are sort of feeling this chronic disconnection from their own body.
That makes so much sense. I think when we talk about, I feel like this one's even more like daunting in my mind than nervous system regulation. Like when we talk about reconnecting with your body, what does that, I think you've already said some things, but like I want to like, can we emphasize? So what does that reconnection actually look like in like a practical way? Because I think obviously people are like, yeah, I want the trust. I want the safety in my body. I want it in my mind, but like I have absolutely no idea what that even means, what that looks like.
Yeah. So I think it varies for everybody, but the place I start with people is connecting with some of your more like base needs, like
Yeah.
recognizing that you need to use the bathroom and like going to do that in that moment. Not saying, let me just do these four things first and then I'll go do that.
Hmm.
Making sure that you have water throughout the day, right? Or that you've eaten during the day. There's
Hmm.
so many folks I meet with who are like, I just like forgot to eat all day, or I forgot to eat this morning, or I ate the like scraps that my kid didn't eat, which I also ate the scraps my kid didn't eat this morning for breakfast, and it was great. But I just will offer that like there is a there is a consciousness shift around like, can I notice that my body needs something right now, and can I get that need met? And starting with the like food, movement, drinking water, using the bathroom, like really simple things. And noticing as you do that, like, oh yeah, this is happening and I'm doing that. I'm meeting this need right now.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, too, diving even sort of deeper into it is recognizing that a feeling or a sensation is showing up, not necessarily that you need to act on it or do something with it or, you know, change it, but just naming to yourself, like, ooh, I'm feeling some activation in my stomach right now
Hmm.
as I just received this work email, right? Or, oh, I'm noticing that I feel really frustrated by this thing that's going on. But starting to name to yourself and recognizing when certain emotions are showing up, when certain sensations are showing up, is a huge part of building that reconnection. And then my personal favorite is always being able to use co regulation as a way to do this. So, being with people doing things that help you to feel connected, grounded, like part of something bigger than yourself is a really great way to start building that connection of like, oh, this feels I actually noticed that I love getting to sit with this person. I love getting to talk to this person. Or this moment with my kid was really special, or my client, or this coworker, right? That this is a huge part of how we start to rebuild our own connection is noticing how we feel being with those that we care about.
Yeah. Oh, I love those. Those are all so good. As you're saying that, I'm thinking like some of the best moments where I feel connected to my body is when I'm with my daughter because I'm like so freaking present, which is just like
Yes.
such a beautiful thing. But I love how you mentioned like it's simple, basic practices. And we always, as people in general, want to overcomplicate things and like think that it's going to be these big, like shiny things that we don't know about or that like somebody has this magic solution, but it's like no, it's like so many simple basic things that you can do to support yourself, like drinking more water and eating nourishing foods and meeting your own needs and like listening to yourself, right? So I love that's such beautiful work, and I'm such a fan because I'm like, no, no,
Mm,
no, it's not big shiny stuff. Like I wish.
yeah, I mean, like the big shiny stuff, right? Like taking a vacation or having a spa day, which is like what people think of. Like I love those things too. Don't get me wrong. They just
Yep.
are not going to be the daily nervous system care that's going to make the big shifts. Like it's actually
Yeah.
the small little things you're doing throughout the day.
Yeah. And I think it's so tricky because a lot of what you see, like, especially now in the wellness sort of industry, is this you've got to like spend all this money, right? Get the treatments, go to the classes, like, do all these things. And I'm like, nervous system regulation doesn't cost money. Like, it really doesn't.
Totally. It doesn't. It you can do it on your own. It's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
do it like just you, which is why having community spaces, why
Mm.
having practitioners who do this work is um, important. But you're right. It's not these big complicated things. It's much slower and perhaps maybe more boring sounding and less shiny and flashy than some of the things that you might be getting sold.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Can we talk about somatic work? Because
Yeah.
like we've already obviously talked a lot about it, but people might not recognize that and really know what it is. So can you tell us basic of like what is somatic work? What is that work that you do with clients?
Yeah. So somatic work is really about taking all the things that we've talked about today, right? Understanding the nervous system and the different states it can move into, and really focusing on sensation, focusing on image and emotion, and being able to drop into more of what we think of as like the animal of the body and be able to track and notice when we move towards certain sensations, when we move towards certain, again, it could be like images or emotions. What starts to happen when we hang out in certain places. And so when I'm doing somatic work with people, it's a lot of noticing what's going on in the body, seeing if there's a place we might start, and then paying attention to what happens when we hang out with that sensation or with that feeling. Does it grow? Does it get smaller? Does it stay the same? Is there a shape and size to it? Is it familiar? Right. And from there, we start to notice does something else happen in the body, right, as we pay attention to it. And so a lot of my work, as I'm thinking about doing like somatics, is helping hold the space for folks to be guided by their body. For some folks that I work with, there's trauma processing that we're doing. So we're processing the things that the body didn't have a chance to do in the moment. So if there's something scary or frightening happening, we're processing like a car accident, for example. Um, we might be noticing sort of like these small moments before and after and starting to pay attention to how the body responded and really getting curious about what is the body's impulse? What does my body want to do when I hang out with this sensation? Can we do that right now? Is it possible? And sometimes it's imagining ourselves doing the thing the body wanted to do. Sometimes it's actually doing the thing the body wanted to do. But the whole um, purpose or conceit of it is that when we allow our bodies to process through some of these things that have gotten stuck, we can actually move them through us. We're actually giving space for the body to be able to move any of that stuck activating energy in the body out because we're allowing the body to complete the action it never was able to complete before.
Mm.
And so this can look like a lot of different things for people. It's one of my favorite things about doing somatic work is that, again, sometimes there's more talking. Sometimes we don't really talk that much at all. Sometimes I'm just sort of like holding the space so that their body can do what it wants to do. But it's really supporting people with sort of dropping out of their heads and into can we just be with the animal of what the body wants and needs right now as we're paying attention to these sensations.
I love that. Okay. If somebody is like, what is a simple practice that I could do that I can maybe like start to do this work? Is there something that you would recommend?
Sort of depends on what your interest is. So I have a lot of different practices I teach people.
Okay, maybe can I give you something like specific?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Give
Okay.
me a
I mean,
scenario. I'm
I'll
here for
try.
it.
So I'm just thinking of course, myself and when I was struggling and like all the people who I work with and like are really struggling with the body sensations that can be really tricky, right? Whether it's the dissociation, whether it's like the stomach stuff, a lot of people have anxiety show up in their stomach. Um, just any of those like physical symptoms. If
Hmm.
somebody's really afraid, right, of those body sensations, especially, I guess we could even say like broader, like panic, how
Hmm.
can they start? Where would you even recommend? I know obviously this is like you do a lot of, there's a lot of work. It's not just like, oh, do this and then like
Sure.
this is going to
Yeah.
help. But like, how can they start to build a safer relationship with their body through somatic work?
Yeah. So, for someone who's struggling with the sensations and it's uncomfortable to pay attention to the sensation, so I work with a lot of folks too who like just noticing the sensations
Mm.
feels like it triggers sort of like a health anxiety.
Yeah, even
Because
talking
I
about it.
actually, right,
Yeah,
exactly. So, what I actually recommend is not starting in the body.
love that.
I recommend looking outward. So, really taking in your environment, looking around,
Mhm.
and starting to notice, is there somewhere that your eyes like to be or would like to be in this moment right now?
Mm.
And I like to say, I want to invite you to let your eyes guide you, not, oh, I should look at that plant or I should look at the like salt lamp I have on my desk or something, but like, where do your eyes want to be? And can you let them rest there for a moment without you needing to fix anything, without there needing to be some change or some major thing that happens? Can we just focus on a visual for a second
Mm.
and just hang out with it? And if you can do that, right, can you start to notice if there's any sounds that are here? Are there any noises that are pulling to you? Can you hear the birds outside? Can you hear cars going by? And usually if I'm one-on-one with someone, I'm like, my voice can be your sound.
Yeah.
And then just like, can you feel your body connected to anything else? It could be floor, chair, ground, whatever you want it to be.
Mm.
Just can you notice the connection there? And that, right, that is like an orienting practice to help slow things down a bit. I'm not asking you to pay attention to your sensations. I'm not telling you that you need to like change how your stomach feels or make the tension go away, but we're just shifting the focus to support the body with scanning for something that is settling, that is maybe neutral, maybe pleasant, versus what the body is doing in that moment. It's scanning and it's building on what feels scary and activating,
Mm.
right? So the more we can sort of offer the counter to it, the more practice the body then has of like, oh, I can find something that will help my body settle.
Mm. I like that. Because it's so, I think it can be so overwhelming, right? And so daunting. And especially like a lot of the stuff we do see and hear is very like black and white of like, just try this, just do this. And you're like, okay, no. So I think with the somatic work that you do, of course, is a big part of the work that you do. I'm sure people are curious and I'm wondering like, how helpful this work is for people because I think people, really struggling, they're like sort of trying anything, doing anything, like putting so much hope into certain things. So like how helpful have you seen somatic work to be with clients?
Yeah. Oh man, I like got chills as you asked that because this is the work that I know helps.
Hmm.
It's helped the, you know, so many people I've worked with. It's helped me so much with
Hmm.
my own journey of navigating anxiety and navigating grief, navigating sort of the various life stages I've been through to this point where there is so much that shifts just by practicing these things. You are literally changing the neural networks in your brain. You are building new pathways so that it does transform these things over time. Somatic work is not like here's the magic pill and it's going to fix everything, but it's one of many different doors to, I think, the same room that a lot of folks are looking to get into, which is like this ability to slow down and feel good in their body. And I think for me, it's the one that resonates the most deeply. It's the one that I found to be the most effective in the work that I do. And so, again, I don't think of somatic work as being the only thing. There can be this beautiful, like menu of different things that you do to support your body, but this one is like so supportive and loving and like rooted in something that feels both, it's neuroscience and it's also the body, which can feel kind of like spiritual in its own way too. And it sort of straddles that line in a way that for me feels very aligned.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you were vulnerable and threw in that like it has been helpful for you personally with like your own struggles that you've navigated.
I could not do work that I do not experience. Like I couldn't offer something that I don't. This has been the case for me throughout my life, that I just, unless I've found it personally like useful in some way, I can't authentically offer it to other folks because I don't have the experience of like I can't say I know this works well unless I've been like, oh yeah, no, I can understand how it feels in my body. But again, I'm very like tactile in that way, I guess, in terms of liking to have the experience with it. So
yeah, no, I love that. That's beautiful. And it makes the work even more powerful. So,
right.
okay, Sarah, this conversation has been so dang good. I know people are going to find like your work so helpful. So if people want to find you and connect with you, where can they find you?
Yes. So I have a podcast that I co-host with my dear friend and colleague. Her name is Lissy, and our podcast is called You Good. And we interview folks about how they take care of themselves, how they show up with themselves. So if you're curious about what this looks like sort of in real life, come find us. It's been such a fun project getting to work on this. And then additionally, I have a newsletter. It's called The Weekly Exhale. And so if any of this resonated or you want more of this or you're curious about what other somatic practices could look like, I write like a short personal note in the beginning. I talk about things that are going on in my life that are sort of nervous system centered, personal care centered. And then I offer sort of a gentle challenge and a somatic practice to try that week. And so if you're looking to build your toolkit and want to find other ways to sort of slow down and connect with your body, you'll hear from me every week. And so you can find me. I can send you the link. Perhaps you can put it in the show notes or something.
Absolutely.
And folks can grab it and they can hop on my newsletter. But this has been such a wonderful conversation.
I love it. It's so good. And I know like the stuff you share is really helpful. And the newsletter sounds amazing. And the podcast sounds so cool. So I'm definitely going to check that out. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. Thank you.
I hope you loved this episode of A Healthy Push. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. This helps people to find the show and get the support they need. And if you know someone who could use a little push, be sure to share this episode with them. And for even more support, head over to ahealthypush.com for show notes and loads of tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your recovery journey. I'll see you next week.